Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome to the always responsible and conscientious Comic Book Vault. Today we're going to take a look at The Amazing Spider-Girl, number 1 through 6. This is a trade called Whatever Happened to the Daughter of Spider-Man. This was published in 2007. Spider-Girl, of course, created by Tom Defalco and Ron Frenz, and they are writing and drawing here as well. Spider-Girl was created in the late 90s, in 1998, in the final issue of What If, which is really interesting because it's kind of in the same tradition as how Spider-Man himself was created at the end of Amazing Fantasy, and I always thought that was really cool. And it's also really interesting that she was created in What If and spun off in her very own universe. Marvel Comics 2 is what it was called at the time. And Marvel Comics 2 wasn't as big of a universe as, say, 29 or later Ultimate, which of course became the really big alternate Marvel universe. But it was created, as far as I'm aware, kind of solely for Spider-Girl. And some other interesting characters came out of there as well, like American Dream, this kind of female version of Captain America who was used in 2011 in a 5-issue miniseries called Captain America Corps, which took Captain America's from different time periods and different realities and made them all do a mission together, and she was there, which was really neat. Spider-Girl's a character that I don't know as much as I'd like to about. I know Vince is a big fan of her, and I've read bits and pieces of it here and there. I think I own a few of the issues of the early run, and I'm really rusty. It's been a long time since I've read them. This is, like I said, the beginning of the second stint of Spider-Girl, which didn't last very long. I think it only ran like 30 issues, and it turned into eventually a backup feature, I want to say in Web of Spider-Man? I forget. I know Vince was picking it up for a while when that was going on, I think 2009, 2010. And anyway, I've not read that stuff, but she kind of petered out over the years after this, which is kind of unfortunate. And I know that she's got a really loyal fan base. There's a lot of people that still really love Mayday Parker and the idea of getting to follow the adventures of the daughter of Spider-Man, not in a futuristic world, but kind of just in our present day and age, as if Peter Parker was Spider-Man in, say, the 70s and 80s, and then married Mary Jane, and they stayed married, and then had Mayday Parker, and she has his superpowers and has to deal with all the same concepts of responsibility that he did, and except that his parent, her parents or her legal guardians are still alive, and she still has these things that make her feel responsible to use her powers and be a superhero. A lot of it being kind of because Peter Parker couldn't keep being Spider-Man after I think something happened to his leg. I think he actually lost his leg, and he became a police officer, but he wasn't able to keep being Spider-Man, and she has to kind of keep dealing with some of Spider-Man's old problems as some of his villains keep popping up, and of course she has her own set of rogues as well. At the back of this, we get Amazing Spider-Girl number 0, which gives a really good, thorough history of hers, and I skimmed this, and as I was looking at it, I was realizing that I wished that while I was reading this, I was actually reading some of the stories that were here, because this was not nearly as exciting as I was hoping it would be. It's good, but it's a bit average for my taste. Basically, what happens is at the end of her first stint, which was a long run. I think it was close to, if not over 100 issues. At the end of that, basically what happens is Hobgoblin, and I'm just saying, I'm just talking about what I read about it from here, not that I've read it, but basically Hobgoblin, and it's the real Hobgoblin, Peter Parker's Hobgoblin, comes after her and almost kills her, and basically seems to maybe know that she's the daughter of Spider-Man. And when she almost gets killed by Hobgoblin, her parents, Peter and Mary Jane, tell her she has to stop being Spider-Girl. And the kind of the interesting angle to this, and what is really great about this book, and again, I don't have a lot of real negative things to say about this. I just found it a bit average, and I'll talk about that. What the angle that makes that interesting is that she actually really wants to be a regular girl. And I know a lot of superhero characters say that. They try to hang up the cape or the costume, the cowl, the mask, whatever it happens to be, and they say, I would do anything to have a normal life. And what keeps them coming back is partially this idea of responsibility, but it's also partially they don't like their life now. They're bored. They miss the rush, the exhilaration. And I think Peter Parker had that at times. You know, he would try to hang up his costume, and there are definitely parallels in here, by the way, to times that he tried to hang up his costume, and he even talks about those times. But Mayday's not like that. She really does want to live a normal life, and she says at one point that she enjoys hanging out with her girls more than actually being Spider-Girl. And so I actually found that to be kind of more sympathetic than some of these other characters although I understand the rush and the exhilaration, but I kind of also liked this angle on it, where with her it really is 100% responsibility, and of course that's what Spider-Man's always been about. It really is. I don't want to do this. I'm done with this. I'm tired of this. I did this for 100 issues. I don't want to go out and fight the bad guys anymore. But Hobgoblin's my responsibility. Partially because he's her father's responsibility, and partially because he's got this kind of grudge against her. And because I have these superpowers, and she says this a lot, whenever I'm around, people seem to live who would have died. And how can I not come out and fight? So what I really like is she's promised her parents that she won't put the costume back on. And she keeps getting forced into these situations where she has to put the costume back on. It's not because she wants to. It's because she feels like she has more of a responsibility to helping people than she does to the truth to her parents. And what's really cool about that is that she's having to deal with this morality that her parents gave her while kind of going against her parents, and that's a really nice catch-22. So I think that the personal internal conflict in this is really quite good. What I didn't care for as much was just the overarching villain plot. It's your standard everybody's after a computer disk sort of story. And in 2007, when this was published, I feel like we've seen a million of those, and it just wasn't real original. And there are definitely ways to make something like that. The artifact plots have been done a bazillion times. There are definitely ways to take the everybody's after a disc kind of stories and kind of turn it on its head and do different things with it. I felt like this was kind of par for the course with that. I like how Tom Defalco writes Hobgoblin. I liked how dramatic he was, and I also like his motivations. He wants what he's always wanted. He wants to be the kingpin of crime. And now that Wilson Fisk is out of the picture, he's kind of vying for power and at war with the Tarantula. And the Tarantula is now the new kingpin of crime. And I remember Tarantula from some other Spider-Girl stories I've read. Maybe I read a couple things after this, I forget. But I do remember seeing the Tarantula in places with Spider-Girl. And he's now kind of the kingpin of crime. And he has no interest in this disc. He says a couple times, if we had had this thing... Because basically what the disc is, by the way, is it's everybody's names of anybody Wilson Fisk ever worked with. His henchmen, people that he bought off, people who just turned their heads and let him do terrible things. It's this big list. I don't know why you'd keep all that on one disc, but there it is, and it seems impossible to hack. But if you could hack it, you'd have all this great information. Well, the Tarantula is not interested in it because he says if we had this when we started, when we took over, it would have been really invaluable to us. But we've been around for a while, and so it wouldn't help us very much. But we don't want it to get into the hands of somebody that could use it against us. So, of course, he still has kind of some stake in it. And ultimately, the whole story is... Spider-Girl trying to, Mayday trying to juggle running for class president, which seems to be kind of what she's doing to fill that void for Spider-Girl. And again, it doesn't seem like she really has much of a void, but at the same time, she feels responsible to help people, and so she wants to kind of make a difference in her school, so she runs for class president. And by the way, I think the high school stuff is handled pretty well in this, except for I didn't really care for Eugene Thompson, who's the son of Flash Thompson, just because he seemed like kind of Flash Thompson all over again. I would have liked a slightly better characterization of him. Or a different characterization for him, I should say. He's not so much of a bully, but he is a jock, and he is kind of a lunkhead, and I don't know. It would have been nice to have had a slightly different characterization for him. I do like Felicity Hardy quite a bit, although I wish she was more in this. And that's of course the daughter of Felicia Hardy, and one of the only people that knows that Mayday Parker is Spider-Girl. And I'm sure she figures into a lot of stories before this that I haven't read, but I found her kind of intriguing, and I'd like to read more about her. So anyway, we've got Mayday trying to juggle that and trying to keep her parents from knowing that she's going out trying to stop the Hobgoblin, which she feels like she's kind of forced to do. And then there's a place where Mary Jane has to allow her to put her costume back on to go save some people. And so now she's kind of in on the lie. And that was interesting for a minute, and I just don't feel like anything is really done with it. Ultimately, they just kind of have to go to Peter together and say, yeah, I put this costume on, I won't do it again. And then toward the end, of course, she has to do it again. I do, however, really like how this ends, which to set up future arcs. And I wish that this had gone on longer than it had. I mean, the whole series, where she basically goes to her parents and says, "Look, I don't know any other way to be. I'm your daughter. I'm your daughter. You guys raised me this way. I have a responsibility to help people with my superpowers. And if you don't like it, tough. There's no other way around it." And Peter won't let her have the last word. I like that. That's very Peter Parker. He says, we're not done, young lady. This isn't this isn't over. And she says, no, I'm sure it's not. But you know what she's gonna do after that. So, by and large, I didn't love the villain plot, but I really enjoyed Mayday's characterization. I should also say there's a subplot that figures in really well toward the end with the main story, where there are these kids that have put together a indie comic. I think this is kind of fun. An indie Spider-Girl comic with the old kind of Spider-Woman-looking costume, or maybe that was an old Spider-Girl costume. I forget. But anyway, they kind of use an old Spider-Girl costume, and they make this. They make this comic, and they take it to a comic book store, and of course it has nothing to do with the real Spider-Girl, and they're really proud of it, and they take it to this local comic book store, and they try to get it in the store, and he says, well, I'll put it on the racks, but I'll only do it if you can get the real Spider-Girl to come here. They actually pitch that to him. They say we can have Spider-Girl here, so they get they get one of their friends to dress up as Spider-Girl, and then Hobgoblin comes after her as bait. And what I like is that Hobgoblin, because it's in the newspaper, what I like is that Hobgoblin doesn't actually think that's Spider-Girl. I like that he's smarter than that. He comes in, and she says, no, Hobgoblin, I'm not the real Spider-Girl. And he says, no, I know, I'm just using you as bait, because I'm sure this will draw the real Spider-Girl out, because everybody knows that she hasn't been around for a few months. What I don't love is that Mayday wasn't smart enough to realize that might happen, because she knew this was going to happen. Peter, at one point, actually thinks that it's her that's going to go to the store, because he sees he sees he sees the Spider-Girl costume picture in the paper, and he actually thinks that it's going to be her, and he falls for it. Now, I can kind of sort of see that it's just a newspaper picture, but I after everything Mayday's been through over all this time, it seems like maybe she would be smart enough to think, Hobgoblin's trying to draw me out. Maybe I should try to protect these people, or try to get this girl not to dress up as Spider-Girl, so she doesn't call it, and I didn't love that. I also think there are some places where she gets a little bit too lucky, especially you have that part there. You have all these places where she thinks that her parents have figured it out, but they really haven't. And then but especially toward the end, she saves. I mean, it's not that she doesn't do anything heroic. She saves the girl that dresses up as Spider-Girl. I forget who that is. I'm sure it's someone with a name that everybody but me knows. I forget who it was. But she saves that girl, and I don't think it was Felicity. I forget who it was. Anyway, so she saves this girl. And then at the end, just when it looks like Hobgoblin is gonna trap her and take her, you get Tarantula's men who come in and kind of stop all that from happening. I thought that was a little bit too easy, of a wrap up for this arc. Overall, this was definitely worth reading, and I definitely like to go back and read some older Spider-Girl, having looked at this. So anyway, that's what I have to say about this, and thanks everybody for watching the Comic Book Vault. If you have anything you'd like to ever send the Vault, you can always send me things to review at our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.